Folks, baseball's back. The MLB and MLB Player Association have agreed to a new CBA. What does that mean for the Kansas City Royals? What does that mean for baseball? Learn all about the new CBA and how it impacts the Royals on today's Locked On Royals podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Royals podcast. Baseball is back. The players can report to spring training today with new rule changes, a new outlook, and the new Royals, the new Locked On Royals podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your teams every day. On today's show, we dive into the new CBA, what it means for Kansas City, and where do we go from here. All of that and more coming up on today's show. So excited for this episode. So excited for this season. We're going to be here every day. So subscribe for free across all platforms, including the new platform of YouTube. Make sure you go over there and subscribe as well. So we're going to be here for you every single day talking baseball. Follow at Locked On Royals on Twitter for my live reaction to anything that happens throughout these next few days and throughout the entire season. And so after you follow Locked On Royals on Twitter, you can subscribe for free across all platforms. Let's dive into the show today. And the new CBA has been agreed to by the MLBPA and the Owners Association, or owners, whatever you want to call them. The lockout ends after 99 days. The CBA will run through 2026. Spring training mandatory report date is Sunday. However, players can report on Friday. The players can report this Friday. Again, this podcast is coming out later than normal because we wanted to wait to get the facts on the CBA and if we would have a CBA. And this time, we really did. This time was worth the wait. So excited for that. The transaction freeze has been lifted already. So free agents and trades are open. However, we didn't see any on Thursday. I would expect some on Friday. So this is really whenever it starts ramping up. And for baseball's sake, it'd be advantageous for them to start making moves Friday, Saturday, Sunday, leading into a busy week in the sports world. You've got NFL free agency opening up. You've got March Madness starting on Thursday and Friday. You want to get your signings and steal those headlines right now if you're baseball. So I'm looking forward to it. Should be a very fun and chaotic day on Friday around the baseball world. Tomorrow, the Royals and Rangers are going to play a game, although it'll be with the minor leaguers who have already been in spring training. Remember, spring training was only paused for those on the 40-man roster. Everyone else in the organizations could report to spring training as the minor league season was not impacted by this lockout at all. So that's still on track to start around April 4th. So if you're in Surprise, Arizona, this game will be free admission. I do not think it'll be broadcasted anywhere, but if that does change, I'll let you know at Locked On Royals on Twitter. So here's what you need to know. Starting with a runner on second is a thing of the past. No longer will that happen. We're back to 9-inning doubleheaders. The regular season gets extended by 3 days, and they'll have doubleheaders in the mix as well. And the Royals' new opening day will be hosting the Guardians on April 8th. For all the drama, for all the sadness, the anger, MLB will miss a week of the season, but still play 162 games. Casual fans won't even notice it was gone. Let's just rejoice in the fact baseball's back. Look, in my opinion, the only thing that should matter for us and us baseball fans is the fact that baseball gets played. We don't need to have a scorecard of who won the CBA negotiations or who lost them. Baseball's back. And that's all that matters. So let's just rejoice right now in the fact that it's back. And again, does it suck to not start March 31st on time? Sure. And is it pointless to only miss a week of the season? Sure. But the bottom line is we miss a week, and the casual fans probably don't even remember there's a lockout happening, right? Hearing that the lockout's over might be the first time that they're hearing about the lockout, period. Because let's face it, if you're following the MLB lockout closely, baseball already has you in their grasp. Baseball already has you as their fan, and you're going to stick around for a long, long, long time. and the people who they're trying to reach out to, the people they're trying to pull in with these new superstars they have to market as a sport, they weren't even noticing because they had other options like the NBA, like the NFL offseason, stuff like that. It's all going to be okay. They've avoided a huge crisis. If this lingered past this week and you start taking away months of the season at a time, then it starts to get dicey. But let's rejoice that that never actually happened. Let's rejoice that they were able to come to their senses. We will talk about what the new CBA means for Kansas City and for the Royals coming up, but I do want to continue talking about the different rule changes. Technically, opening day will be April 7th because the season has a few games scheduled that day. I apologize. I'm getting choked up over here for the love of baseball. But so the season in general will start on April 7th. And this is where baseball can capitalize on this lockout. Remember, in December, before that December lockout date, there was a flurry of transactions. They were flying off the shelves, and it created traction for baseball. It created another marquee date on the calendar for baseball. Similar to what the NBA does, right? July 1st, when NBA free agency opens and tampering period starts, there's 50 moves happening, and it's a day of NBA basketball that's on the calendar that no games are being played, but they steal all the headlines. Baseball had that before the lockout date because players were flying off the shelves. Well, now you have a shrunken spring training, which starts tomorrow on Friday the 11th and runs through April 7th. And you still have a ton of stars in the open market who need to find a home, who need to get their lives going, who need to get moved to their new cities, get into spring training, get ready for the season, and get ready to hit the ground running for a 162 game sprint. So starting Friday, I expect moves to just flood in. If you have Jeff Passan notifications on, Kansas City legend, I think that he'll send you about 20 notifications today. And by 20, I mean 20,000 about players who are signing deals and getting traded. So that's great for baseball. That helps you get back in the news cycle. That helps people get back and amped for their season of their respective teams and get back in the swing of things. That's where baseball wins in all of this. Is that now you're forced to make moves. You cannot drag out free agency like you have in the past. Remember Bryce Harper signing in the middle of spring training, right? One of the biggest names, if not the biggest name in all of baseball, Bryce Harper, signing in a ho-hum day in February instead of some offseason day to get you an extra eyeball set on you. This is all going to be good for baseball in the offseason. I cannot wait for the chaos that will ensue. Will the Royals be a part of it? We're going to talk about that coming up. And how each and every CBA change impacts the Royals. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at Mission Impossible. Folks, you've heard of Mission Impossible, but this is Mission Possible. It's an audiobook by Tim Tebow. Are you ready to discover your purpose and live a life that impacts wherever you go? Mission Possible, written and read by New York Times bestselling author and athlete Tim Tebow, encourages you to find your inspiration, pursue your purpose, and create a life for yourself that counts. Ignite a new spark in your life throughout the inspirational listen. Mission Possible by Tim Tebow is available everywhere you get audiobooks and that they are sold. We are back on the Locked On Royals podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Royals and email the show, LockedOnRoyals@gmail.com. I want you to subscribe to Locked On Royals for free. Every episode is entirely free on all your pod-catching devices and now on YouTube, just in time for the new MLB season. Cannot wait. This is an everyday podcast, breaking down the Royals and breaking down MLB. So make sure you stay tuned. Let's talk about that. What changes in the CBA? Well, the CBA all but confirms Bobby Witt Jr. is on the opening day roster, which is the biggest story for Kansas City in all of this. Well, why is that the case, you might ask? Because the top vote getters in Rookie of the Year earn a full year of service time. The top two finishers on a full year of service time. So you cannot pull a Cubs and Chris Bryant scenario where you hold them down for a couple of weeks and then call them back up, and that year does not count for them. And so if you imagine Bobby Witt Jr. will live up to the hype and be the best prospect in baseball and be this generational talent and be this just transcendent superstar and be one of the best players the Royals have ever had, if you believe all that hype, then he's going to finish top two in Rookie of the Year voting. Another reason he'll finish top two is because he's familiar. And award voters are lazy and they like narratives and they want to be right. More so than lazy, they want to be right. They want to confirm their beliefs. And you have a guy who every national writer believes is going to be great. And so they're going to vote for him in April for Rookie of the Year, no matter what happens. Plus, I think he's going to be one of the best players in baseball. So all that to say, there's absolutely no reason not to call up Bobby Witt Jr. because not only does he get a full year of service time, helping his case, getting him to freaking it quicker and helping the players out, but the Royals get draft pick compensation if they promote their top prospects on opening day. And in a market like this in Kansas City, with an organization like this in Kansas City, where you cannot just go out there and buy a team, and the draft is so important, and the MLB draft is such a crapshoot that you need as many shots at it as you can get, getting extra draft compensation for a player who flirted with getting called up last year at the end of spring training, who Dayton Moore has already said has a great chance to make the team out of camp before the CBA was in place. It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. You do a good faith move for Bobby Witt Jr., getting him a 4-year service time, and you get draft picks in the mix as well. It's a no-brainer. But speaking of the MLB draft, they add an MLB draft lottery to try to sway teams away from tanking. Now, this, of course, has been a thing in the NBA, and this makes my life almost entirely devoted to lottery balls and ping pong balls on tankathon.com. If you follow the Thunder, who I cover for Locked On Thunder, you know that they're in the midst of a tanking season, and we'll see how the Royals do this year. The Royals should be in win-now mode. They've said as much as an organization, so we'll see if they stay true to that, especially now with the expanded playoffs. But it does de-incentivize tanking for teams because not only is the MLB draft already hard to nail, but now you're not guaranteed the top overall pick in the draft. That's important. And as I teased before, MLB has expanded the postseason to 12 teams. This is big for the Royals. The draft is big, lottery is big because now there's no reason to tank anymore because you just can't guarantee anything in general, but also now you just can't even guarantee the top overall pick. Number 2, Bobby Witt Jr., very important to call up your top prospect on opening day. Number 3, why the playoff expansion is so important is because Dayton Moore and this organization has told their mouthpieces for 5 years now that 2022 is the time that they're going to go all in, that they're going to be back in the postseason, they're going to be back relevant. They've been preaching this sermon to anyone who will listen, and now it's time to hold them accountable for that and have expectations and be excited about baseball in Kansas City. Be excited that you get to watch this young, fun team. Because with 12 teams in the mix and 12 teams making the postseason and you calling your shot way back when, way back before playoff expansion, you have to at least be in the mix this year. You cannot fall flat on your face. You have to be competitive. You have to finish in the postseason. And look, things happen. Injuries happen. A cold streak happens here and there. Do they literally have to make the playoffs to be successful? No. But they cannot be 20 games out. They cannot be the 9th worst team in baseball. They have to be better this year. They have to be fighting for a playoff spot on the last weekend of the season. They just have to be considered a successful season. In my opinion, because of how much emphasis they've put on 2022. Again, think of the media members that you've heard preach about 2022. They're directly correlated with the organization. That's the messaging that the organization wants out there. Don't let them backtrack now. This organization has put a staple mark on 2022. Let's see it through. And this next week, we're going to talk about all the reasons why 2022 is very realistic, especially with the expanded postseason. But again, while we all want the postseason, all they really have to do is finish within like 5 games of the playoffs, and it will be a very successful run. And if you can sneak into the dance, even better. I would expect as we start to see season preview content rolling out across our network, across other networks, that you're going to see a lot of people pick the Royals as a dark horse playoff candidate. I'm not sure that anyone will be bold enough to go out on the limb and say that they for sure are going to get in, but a dark horse playoff candidate is an option for the Royals, and probably the favorite for the Royals because the Mariners exploded onto the scene last year, and they're going to be the trendy pick to actually get in. The dark horse, I think, will be Kansas City, especially with the expanded postseason. But that's what matters the most for Kansas City in the CBA. Starting in 2023, every team will play everybody in the MLB. So they're going to cut down divisional games, and every team plays every team. That I think will be fun. I think that does not necessarily impact the Royals specifically. Obviously, it impacts everybody. It's like a general type of rule that everyone's going to have to deal with now. And I say deal with in a positive way. I think it's great that you're not going to play Cleveland and Detroit and Chicago and Minnesota 50 times a year. I think it's great that you guarantee every top star will be playing your team because baseball is a regional game. It's a long game. It's a long season. And you really, with your team playing every single day, you only have the possibility of, most people do, of watching one game per day, and your team plays every single day. You're going to watch your team every single day and not really get to check in on the rest of baseball. And so now, just by watching the Royals next year, you're going to see every top player that you hear about. From Mike Trout, who you played, of course, already, to Jazz Chisholm in Miami, who you're going to get to see explode on the scene. That maybe you've heard about him because he has the Euro step home run, yada, yada, yada. But you haven't seen him because, again, the Royals play every single day. You choose to watch the Royals over the Mariners. The Marlins, obviously. I think that's going to be a great addition for baseball. I really do. And now you can only option a player 5 times within a season. So RIP the Edward Olivares memes, obviously. Starting in 2023, the MLB can decide to implement a banning of the shift, robo umpires, and larger bases. That'll be interesting to see how that all pans out next year. And now, I believe that this starts also in 2023, but it could start this year. I'm not sure. Jersey uniform advertisements are a thing now, just like they are in basketball, and just like they are, I believe, in hockey, but I'm not sure. I know for sure the NBA has jersey uniform advertisements. That'll be something to get used to, but obviously it does not matter at all. On July 25th, that's the new key date for the CBA, the union will either decide to implement international draft in 2024, or they'll give back the qualifying offer and put that back in the mix. But that doesn't really matter. Now, the other things in the CBA include that they're going to have series in Mexico, Asia, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, London, and Paris. Again, that's awesome. This season is so long. You have 162 games. You can afford to play a series overseas and get your sport out in front of new eyeballs. And the MLB announces that reporters are back in the clubhouse and not on Zoom, which I believe is the first sport to do this. I know that the NBA is still on Zoom. It's still half and half and not at all in locker room access. And I believe that the NFL is the same way, half and half, no locker room access, but some media gets to go to the press conference and some get to stay on Zoom. That's what it is in the NBA. So in the NBA, I am a media member for the NBA. I'm not for baseball, but I am for the NBA. And you get to either attend in person or attend on Zoom. You get the option of both, but you cannot go into the locker room. And now I think the baseball's the first one to open up locker room access for reporters again. Why does that matter? Look, there is something to say about being able to pull somebody aside and ask them stuff privately and get information for a insider story on them that way versus inside of a huge media scrum where you're only given players that the team gives you. But ultimately for me, I think that the Zoom and the locker room access both have their pros and cons, and it doesn't really matter just as long as you get any access to players is good enough. But it's cool though that the MLB media will get to be back in the clubhouse if they want to be. Now, the only other thing from baseball is that they signed a deal for exclusive Friday night doubleheaders on Apple TV Plus. This will be exclusive to Apple TV Plus. It will not be on regional networks. So let's say that the Royals get picked up for the first Friday night doubleheader on Apple TV Plus. You can only watch that game on Apple TV Plus. You cannot watch that on Bali, Kansas City. You cannot watch that anywhere else. MLB.TV. You have to watch it on Apple TV Plus. Now, what they're going to do is I believe for the first 2 weeks or maybe even longer than that, you can watch it for free on Apple TV Plus. Explore Apple TV Plus, see if you like it, and then you can purchase it to see every doubleheader for the sport. Also, at the doubleheader, Apple TV Plus is going to have an MLB Red Zone type of show each weeknight, which is going to be a whip around show showing you highlights of the sport and live look-ins, things like that. That might be very interesting. So let's see if we like that as a sport. Obviously, big streaming services like Peacock and Apple Plus are interested in the sport of baseball. And now coming up, we're going to talk about what happens now for baseball, what happens next for the sport, and where do we go from here? All that and more is coming up on today's Locked On Royals on Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Built Bar. Built Bar is a fantastic protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. Go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15, get 15% off of your next order at Built.com. Make sure you check it out. It's a protein bar, but it tastes like a candy bar. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal. Most bars have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. They're great. Check out Built.com and make sure that you enjoy it today with the code LOCK15. Get 15% off of your next order. My personal favorite is the cookies and cream Built Bar. Make sure you try that out today. It's a delicious snack. It's even a great meal replacement, and it's great for pre-workout and post-workout as well. So make sure you go check out Built.com and use the code LOCK15 today. Let's say right now also, we're good friends over at RockAuto.com. RockAuto.com is a family-owned business. It's serving you auto parts online for 20 years. That's right, 20 years ago. You could have been going to RockAuto.com and finding all the parts that your car would ever need. In fact, you should do that. Want to know why? It's because I know nothing about cars. And why am I advising you to go somewhere if I know nothing about cars? Here's the thing. I don't have to know anything about cars. All I got to do is know my make, my model, my year, and they're only going to show me car parts that are compatible with my vehicle. And in fact, what's so great about knowing nothing about cars while going to RockAuto.com is that they cannot judge me and they cannot know that I know nothing about cars. So they're not going to upcharge me. They're not going to pull one over on me. They're going to give me the same reliably low prices at their amazing selection every single day. And all the parts your car will ever need at RockAuto.com. Tell them Locked On sent you in the how did you hear about this box, and then what to do from there. RockAuto.com. We are back on the Locked On Royals podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. What comes next? We've talked all about the CBA, how it impacts the Royals, how it impacts baseball as a whole, but where do we go from here? Well, like I said, the transaction window is open. However, no moves have been made yet, and it's past midnight Central Time from Thursday into Friday. And here's what's on the list right now. I mean, you have Carlos Correa, Chris Bryant, Trevor Story, Freddie Freeman, Clayton Kershaw, Carlos Rondon, Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, Anthony Rizzo, Kenley Jansen, Nelson Cruz, Jonathan Villar, Colin McHugh, Danny Duffy, Zach Greinke, a couple of Royals legends, Andrew McCutchen, all out there in free agency, not to mention who might be on the trading block like Brian Reynolds of the Pirates or Matt Olson of the A's. The transactions are going to come fast, hot and heavy. Make sure you have Twitter notifications on for Jeff Passan, for Ken Rosenthal, for all the top reporters. And let's see what the Royals do in this transactional window heading into spring training. Folks, I would imagine tomorrow we're going to get a new MLB spring training schedule that will see, when games start and, who the Royals play, etc. So we're going to update the show on that tomorrow. Also, again, Sunday's the mandatory report date. They're going to see everybody back in Surprise. However, they can start reporting tomorrow. And there's a lot to get into. So this is going to be Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day. Subscribe for free across all platforms so you never miss an episode. Tomorrow, we're going to dive into whatever transactions happen on Friday, and we're going to talk about the top storylines to follow in Royals spring training. That's on tomorrow's show, on Friday's show. That's what we're going to do. It's time to have expectations for this team. It's time to get excited about baseball. It's time to watch baseball again. Follow baseball again. Follow me on Twitter at Locked On Royals. My live reaction to what's happening in baseball all the time. And folks, tomorrow's show will be a lot of fun talking about spring training and the storylines to follow. Monday is going to be our first season preview. And Tuesday, we're going to continue rolling on with spring training coverage. So a lot to get into. It's every single day here on the Locked On Royals podcast. Your teams every day. I'm going to leave you with the greatest song ever made to celebrate baseball being back.
Hey, 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 baby. want to be. Baseball with the Royals. If you want to be
having a great time,
you want to be
loving the fun.
you want to see all of the excitement, this is the place and we're the one. If you want to be yelling like crazy, or the guys you love to see, come on out and join us, this is the place you want to be.